Hi, this is Mike Kaler from SmirkNewMedia.com, and you're listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Via.
Well done, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Dr. Rich Greene, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer, and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good, Jeffrey. Thanks.
So,
I'm ready to vroom.
Ready to vroom, and veer, I hope.
I think it's that veer that we may be talking a little bit about today.
It's all in the veers. Okay. So you are at ironmindsuccess.com, and you got a coaching business over there. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your coaching business today.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that gets me pumped up all the time, and I'm a performance expert, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that a little bit later, but the thing that gets me pumped up all of the time is helping people through the rough times. You know, when things don't go the way you plan them to go, which sort of seems like it always happens. How do you recover and then just be a peak performer? And so that's the stuff I love to do.
It's almost perfect.
And,
You're kind of a perfect guest because what you just said was you like to help people through their veers.
Exactly. Because I've had a lot of veers in my life, I'll tell you. So, if anybody can learn from them, that's a great thing.
All right. So I told you earlier while we were chatting that you had to think of a story, but I forgot to ask you what the story cue is. So did you think of a story that you can tell later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Well, my goodness, I have lots of stories.
Okay.
It's just, is there one that's going to be interesting?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about a mystery story from Rich later, but not right now. And I have no idea what it is. And I don't think Rich does either, but that's awesome. So before we do that, let's go back in time and talk about young Rich in high school. So what sort of kid were you in high school growing up?
The classic nerd.
Classic nerd.
Yep,
Okay.
Classic nerd. I was a bookworm. I was that kid that would love to be inside reading a book on a bright sunny day. My mother was always telling me to go outside, but
Right.
I was just buried in other worlds.
Okay. So you would rather stay inside and read a book. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So
not really into athletics at all.
Oh, no, I would consider myself to be back in those days, to be pretty clumsy.
Okay.
I wore glasses, and
Right.
I was nearsighted, and it just impressed in my mind those visions of being out in left field playing ball, hoping the ball didn't come to me.
I can tell you, I shared this identity crisis with you when I was a kid. It's weird how that happens, though, right? Like,
I know.
I remember you remember Pop Warner football?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So I went out for Pop Warner football and I quit, and I got a lot of shit for that. Why did I quit?
Were you a big kid or a small kid?
I was kind of a scrawny kid, but that's not what it was. Okay. What it was I didn't want to let my teammates down, and I had no clue what to do after the word hut. Okay. So my brain was not ready to understand concepts and plays and things like this. Now I had like an adult, a coach, parent, uncle, aunt, anybody older than me come up and said, Jeff, what's wrong? Why don't you want to play? And I would have answered, honestly, I would have said, I don't know what to do. I don't know the plays. I can't remember what to do. Right. And had they said, look, you're 8 years old, just get out there and play and have a good time, I would have. I went, oh, right. Thanks. Right. But no, that never happened. what they did was they just said, quitters never succeed. Right. So I was like, okay, well, too bad. I guess I won't be a success. Screw you.
It's funny because people catch on fire at different rates. And I'm a 7-time Ironman finisher
right now.
I think
now, right
now at the ripe age that I'm at. But I think back to those younger days, and there's no way I would have ever conceived that. Ever.
Right. So that's an interesting story in and of itself, right? Because they're just how you had to ask yourself some interesting questions, I would say, right? At some point. But before we get into that, that's the health story. Before we get into that, we're teasing now because there's a big health story and how we get to going from nerd to triathlete, 7-time triathlete. So, which is amazing, but we're not there yet. Okay. So what happened? What path did you take right after high school?
I kind of followed the path that my parents set out for me, which was go to college, get good grades, get out of school, get a job. And so I did those things. And I didn't really know what I was interested in. Well, I guess I did. Now, looking back on it, I mean, I love to read. Okay. And I probably would have been a literature or some sort of an English major, but I went into business. Okay. And I got a business degree, and it was undergraduate years. Okay.
All right. Did you like business college? Did you like it, or was it just something that you thought would give you a job? Is that
kind of both? Okay. I knew that's what I at that particular time. Right. I knew that's what I needed, and back
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
College degree opened doors.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. Not so much today anymore. Well, I guess it depends on the degree, but yes, it definitely set you apart, right? It's sort of like if you have a business degree on your resume, you're probably going to get hired before somebody that doesn't, or at least interviewed, right? At least interviewed. You still have to bang out a good interview. But okay. So what was your first job after college?
This is kind of a weird one, Jeffrey, because
okay. I like weird.
Well, I had a major I majored in marketing, and I loved marketing. And I started looking at the jobs back in those days, and I'm sure we'll talk about age at some point here, but back in the day when I got out of school, and the starting pay for a marketing job was about $12,000 to $14,000 a year. And I thought, well, that's not very much money.
Right. No, it's not.
It'll tell you something about how old I was, but I am. But then I looked at the sales jobs. Right. And they were paying like $20,000+ a year, and you got a car and bonuses and commissions and all kinds of things. Right. And so I thought, sales, that's for me. Okay. But here's the strange part. I was so shy. Back in those days, I could not look you in the eye and shake your hand. Wow. So it was a weird choice. Yeah. It was a weird choice.
Interesting. So you had no concept of what sales was. You just were like, well, I need more money. or is that about right? Or
that money thing is a driver. That was a driver. And I had no clue what I was doing, and I had no social skills as far as knowing how to influence people. Right. Yes. It was an eye opener.
It is I love everyone that's good at sales. Like my wife, she's doing sales as a hobby, but she still loves it. So back when I was active duty Air Force forever, right? And we lived in Hawaii. She's actually Japanese from Japan. So her Japanese is, really good.
Better than yours?
Way better than mine, yes. And she got a job at Christian Dior Boutique, right? Yes, wow. Yes. And she was like usually either number 1 sales or number 2 sales. Because the Japanese people would come in, looking to buy something slightly cheaper than in Japan, in Hawaii. And all she didn't have any technique beyond just keep talking, But that works.
Well, you're in sales too. I mean, we're
Am I?
all in sales. We
Okay.
are all in sales. We're all influencing people every single day.
Right. That's true. That's true. And, even if we want to help them, right? Helping somebody is trying to influence a positive change, right?
Right.
You can also, you can influence them to get some money out of their pocket too. But that's probably not the best strategy, I would imagine, because it's like, if you genuinely help somebody, they're happy to pay you, right? I mean, they want to pay you. They feel like they've gotten some value.
That's that philosophy on what sales is. And I think most people who aren't in the profession of sales sort of might have it confused with what they've experienced in the past. Salespeople who try to convince or cajole or
trick, right?
They're posers. They're not real salespeople.
Right.
Real salespeople are they're using their skills of influence to help somebody make a decision. Yes or no. That's it.
Right. Right. Is this gonna be right for you? Is this a good fit for you? Yes. I get it.
So
yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time when I got out of school. And I took that very first job at the Campbell Soup Company. And you might think I was just selling soup, but Campbell's at that time sold almost everything in the store, from produce to frozen foods to canned products and soups and beans and pastas. And so I got to know the grocery store pretty well.
Okay.
On the south side of Chicago, which was my first territory. But I didn't know a lot about selling at all, anything.
Right.
To store management.
Right.
So I walk up with my order form and stick it in front of them and, expect them to give me an order. It didn't work so well.
Kind of a rude awakening.
It was a rude awakening.
You had some skill building there that you had to do.
I definitely had some skill building that needed to happen. And I was very, very fortunate.
Okay.
That I happened to, when I knew things were not going well and I wasn't getting what I needed from the company, and I knew if I didn't do something, I was going to be out of a job. I was more afraid of getting fired than I was of, because I was very shy, looking somebody in the eye and then just getting to know them as a person. And I happened upon a book which changed my life. And because I'm a reader, right?
Right.
And it was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was
It's a life-changing book. It was
a life-changing book. And I've literally read, thousands of books now, because I read about 100 books a year.
Nice.
That's always my goal, is to read at least 100 books a year. And
it's impressive.
I'm doing a lot of reading.
You're probably not spending a lot of time watching Netflix, so good for you.
No. So I'll have to admit to binging once in a while, but yes.
Hey, we all need. I'm trying to change my relationship with my couch, so and I think we all need to do that. Okay, so thank you for all of that, and thank you for sharing. And I know Dale Carnegie's books, and I think I read that one too. I probably forgot a lot of the details, and they kind of like blend in together with all the other like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Sure.
Sort of like those two, really I was like shocked. Because going into it, I thought they were about business, or I didn't really know what they were about. But then I read them. I was like, these are really awesome books, like life-changing books that just like.
They're foundational. They're really seminal in the industry of personal development.
Totally. Yeah. All right. So everybody go out and read those 2 books.
Exactly.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I'll plug 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. All right. So let's talk about your health story. So give us a little background before you ended up in that hospital room when the nurse brought in the EKG.
Okay.
So tee that up a little bit. Because I know you were about like 50 something, and
yep.
So talk a little about what was your job, and what was your diet, and what was your sleep habit. Just give us a sort of like an overview of how you got there.
Jeffrey, it wasn't good.
Oh, I know. Oh, I get it.
So
Message
first of all,
received.
I think most people struggle a little bit with diet, right?
We all do, yes.
We all do. I mean, it's one of those universal things.
It's sad. The standard American diet, sad.
and I will tell you that in the circles I run in with Ironman triathletes,
Right.
that they struggle just as much as everybody else.
Really?
They struggle just as much as everybody else. They're probably a little
surprising.
more disciplined.
Yes.
But we're all the same. Let me go back to that high school question you asked about what kind of an athlete I was, because I wasn't a very good athlete at all.
Right.
And because I wasn't very good, I loved to watch sports.
Okay.
But I didn't want to play it.
Right.
I didn't want to play any sport because I wasn't great.
Right.
And that sort of went over to exercise, because exercise to me was kind of boring.
Right.
I never exercised my entire adult life until I had the issue, which I'm going to tell you about.
Right.
I had a professional salesperson, sales and marketing. I did that. I've done that for over 3 decades. I traveled a lot around the world. Very fortunate, worked for a lot of companies that I've been able to travel around the world and live a pretty good life, which also translated to I ate pretty good. Probably not very healthy, but I ate pretty good.
Right. Understood. Yes.
And I ate a lot of that pretty good stuff.
Sure.
So I ate all the wrong things, and I ate too much of all the wrong things, and I drank too much, and I did everything that you shouldn't do.
Right.
And that went on for decades until I just reached this limit where I didn't feel well. And I've had borderline high blood pressure for most of my adult life.
Okay.
And I knew things were really bad because I was getting dizzy a lot. And a lot of times I'd have to grab the wall. I'd get dizzy, feel like I want to pass out.
Right.
I thought, I should go to the doctor.
Okay.
And
all right.
I made that decision. Get ready for this. On my 50th birthday.
Wow. Okay.
And I did not have an appointment to go to the doctor. I just went.
Okay.
And said, I need to see the doctor. I'm not feeling good. And they said, well, we don't have any time, but we'll try to get you in, sit down. And I sat in that waiting room for nearly an hour, just thinking about all of the bad things that we think about when something happens. And it was a good thing that I didn't have my phone with me, because I would have been Googling WebMD and looking up, all of the diseases that I probably thought I had.
Okay.
Anyway, I after about an hour, I get led into the examination room, and I thought, as I went into that room, and I just wasn't in a good mental state. So I feel the temperature, and I go, man, it's cold. And I was kind of smelling, I could smell antiseptic. And I thought to myself, Jeffrey, this is a place where people go to die.
Totally. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's where my head was at. The nurse takes my blood pressure, and she's got like a sort of a really surprised look on her face. And she takes it again. And I didn't ask her the first time what it was.
Right.
She takes it again after a few minutes. And I could see that she's concerned. And I said, what is it? She says, your blood pressure is 209 over 107. Now, I know that normal is 120 over 70. So I was getting into not a good place at all. She left the room, and I'm sitting there by myself, just waiting for the doctor to come in.
Kind of in a cold sweat, panic kind of feeling.
I didn't really know what the problem was.
Okay.
I mean,
well, you have high blood pressure at that moment, but you don't really.
Yeah, I had blood pressure. I had high blood pressure, and I was not medicated. And I just knew the doctors had always said, "Yeah, your blood pressure is a little high forever," and it was really high. So the doctor comes in. He comes back with a nurse. They're wheeling this big machine, and it's an EKG machine. One of those heart monitors.
Sure.
Just for me.
Yikes.
So,
wow.
I knew, Jeffrey, at that point that I was in trouble, because typically they just write you a prescription and send you on your way.
Right.
But that wasn't what was happening. And
Right.
so they hooked me up and they're looking at the readings, and I could see the doctor has a concerned look on his face. And I go, "What is it, doc? What is it?" But never mind. I know I'm gonna have a heart attack, aren't I? And he was quiet. He didn't answer me right away. He looked at me, said, "No, Mr. Greene, you're not gonna have a heart attack. But if you don't change your ways, you're probably gonna have a stroke and you might die." And I'll tell you, that was a eye opener and an awakening for me.
Right.
The first thought that came to my mind was my two daughters, who were 10 and 12 at the time. And I thought, am I ever going to get a chance to see them grow up?
Right. 10 and 12. Okay. Right.
10 and 12. And will I get a chance to walk them down the aisle? Will I even ever meet my grandkids?
Okay. Right.
And
wow. Yeah.
So that was the day when everything changed for me physically, mentally, spiritually.
Right.
I'm not a prayer,
right,
but I said a prayer and I asked God for help that day.
I believe you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are some good questions that you asked yourself that floated into your mind there. Like all of those questions that you just listed out that, you asked yourself in the moment. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think this has happened to probably more people than we all would like to think. Right. That specific event there did not happen to me. I can get into my health story a little bit, but I want to focus on yours. But I've heard that story before from other friends' family, right? Where they go into the doctor and they say, "Look, you need to stop drinking and lose 100 pounds." And then they send you on your way. Right. So Yeah. And
I was 50 pounds overweight. So
right.
I know that one.
Lose 100 pounds and stop drinking. Right. But then they send you on, have a nice day. Right. Right.
How do I do that?
Exactly.
Right? How do I do it?
Can you write me a prescription for losing 100 pounds and stop drinking, please? Are you going to send me to a weight loss treatment facility where I can learn to lose weight and eat right? No. Is any of this going to be covered by insurance? No. It's all on you, right? Isn't it?
It is.
It is.
Really
it's all on you. Yeah.
And that's why it doesn't work for a lot of people.
Totally doesn't work for almost, you go home with that and you say, okay, all right, okay, I got to do it, right? With all this intention of doing it, right? So the next day you go, okay, no beer, right? Or we're going to go walking, right? But you don't know anything. You don't have any sort of clue what to do, right? So if you're not like, why were you different? What question did you ask yourself that was different than, 80% of people that were in the same scenario that went home and with no idea what to do? What was different for you?
It really wasn't the question, because I think we're universal that way. I think all of us ask the same questions. It really is in getting down and doing it. And that's where I think most people mess up. And I'm no different than anybody else. I didn't like to exercise. I thought it was boring, but I knew that I was probably going to lose my life, because the other thing I didn't tell you is that most of the males in my family died in their 70s of strokes.
Nope.
So I'm 50 years old. I'm 50 years old at the time.
You only got 20 years left.
Yeah. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not. Right.
So I knew I needed to do something. And I thought to myself, what is it that I'm going to do that it won't be boring? Right. When I was in high school, I was a swimmer.
Okay.
And I'm not a bad swimmer. I was clumsy at all the other sports, but I was okay. And I thought, that's what I'll do. I'll start swimming for exercise.
Right. And I already know it's fun. It does.
Right. Well, that lasted about 2 weeks. Okay.
It was fun for about 2 weeks. Okay.
It wasn't fun at all. It was boring.
Okay.
Just going back and forth and looking at the black line at the bottom of the pool.
It was really boring. Yeah, that is boring.
And I was really in bad shape.
Right.
So I know we kind of talked about that. I'm a type A. I've been type A my whole life. Right. Especially after I became a professional salesperson. I just was really, I wanted to just take on the world. And
I might
So
be
I
type
knew-
Z. I don't know.
Well, I'm a type A, but I'm an introvert. So it's kind of a
Interesting. Ooh,
strange.
that's an interesting
combination.
combo. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But so I needed to find something that was going to be really challenging, and I did some Googling, and I found a 12.5-mile ocean swim around the island of Key West.
Wow.
And I thought,
oh my God.
if I signed up for
the
that,
fun thing that you wanted.
well, I don't know if I thought it was. I don't know what I was thinking. I was an idiot.
Okay.
But I signed up for it.
Okay.
And I said, if I sign up for it, I've got to train.
It's true.
And if I don't, and I thought to myself, if I don't train, I could die out there in the ocean. So I
Right.
better really train.
Right. I have to.
And
So
you have
you're using this sort of like pressure point of I'm gonna sign up for this to create some like external motivation sort of thing.
well, that was for me,
Right.
and for a lot of other. Now, I'll also tell you that once I learned a little bit more about extreme sports, and that's considered an extreme sport. That's ultra distance swimming.
Right.
Once I discovered something about that, I delved in, because I'm a researcher. I delved into what made people do those kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's
And I
very interesting to
discovered-
me too. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, here's the thing, Jeffrey. I discovered it's not about, you've got to ask the questions. We talked about that, but
Right.
that's not enough. You got to actually get out and do it.
Right.
And for me, signing up for something and putting something in front of me was the impetus for me to exercise. It
Right.
was
That's what it
because
took.
it's hard to get motivated.
Right. That's
right?
what it took for you. That's what it took.
That's what it took for me.
Right.
But I found out for a lot of other extreme athletes, that's what it took for them too.
Okay. So maybe that's sort of like a lot of people that don't do it are going, why the hell are you doing that? That's why. That right?
Right.
They need to. For some,
Exactly.
right. They need to be who they want to be, I think is right.
And
They
the
want
inter-
they want to be a person that does that. Right? It's like a change in identity inside your brain. How's that sound?
It does happen. But
Yes.
it does, first
Doesn't
it's
happen
an
overnight.
idea.
Right, right.
Yes, an idea, and then as you start doing it, then you begin to change. You begin to see yourself differently.
Yes.
And then you see the performance and things change. So you got to get the idea, and then you got to start doing it. But I think the thing is the audacious goal, the big hairy. You've heard of the big hairy
Yes.
audacious goal.
Yes.
I think that's what it is, and this can apply to anything in life, not just losing weight and getting in shape.
Right.
If you put something out there and you tell everybody that you're doing it, there's another secret.
Right. Right.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Don't
A little like social pressure as the
Exactly.
yes.
Go ahead, go out on Facebook or whatever social media and tell everybody you're doing something.
That
Put yourself on the spot.
You're putting a I'm going to do this because it's who I am. And if you don't now, then you're gonna, that if you're like me, if I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. Right?
Right.
Yes. And that's
'Cause then you can
an
have-
identity thing. I think that, right? I'm a person when I say now if I hem and haw, if I say maybe I'll move to Hawaii, right? Right? Then I'm not
Right.
I'm not committed, right?
Right.
But if I look you in the eye and go, Rich, I'm moving to Hawaii, right? In my mind, those are two different things, right? One's committed, one's screwing around, right? I'm thinking about it, right? So there's a big difference. That
I'm going to ask you about moving to Hawaii, so I'm going to hold you to it.
Please.
And that's the thing. No, seriously, I mean,
Right.
if you put out on social media to thousands of people,
Right.
you might have hundreds of people coming back to you saying, "What about that thing? Did you do that thing?"
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that worked for you.
It worked for me, and I did the swim, and actually
Right.
did it 3 times. And I did it the first time I did it was in a tropical storm.
Wow.
And they almost didn't have it. About 30% of the people dropped out
Wow.
after the first mile, and I didn't know you could quit, so I just kept going. So I found out afterwards everybody got off at the first mile at this pier, and I thought, wow, okay.
Damn it.
So I know. So I did that, and
Right.
but the jump from there to a triathlon was an interesting one because I had to get a coach because I just couldn't train myself.
You have to have a coach. Yeah.
I had to get a coach. I mean, otherwise I never would have been able to do the endurance, get the endurance to do 12 and a half miles.
Right.
And my coach, she said, it's not all about swimming. She said, it's about endurance. And then she asked me a question. She said, do you ride a bike? And I said, no, coach, I haven't ridden a bike since I was 16 years old because I have a car. I drive. Why would I want to ride a bike?
Good. Yeah, right. Totally.
Right?
Yes.
Because remember, I didn't exercise. So I didn't see that as anything that I'd ever want to do.
Right.
And she said, and I said, plus I got a bad back.
Right.
And she said, well, I think that's even more the reason why you should ride a bike. So I got one and I started to ride a bike.
Okay.
And then
hurt
a couple weeks later, it was.
So I'm going to jump in here and say, I don't know why, but I decided to buy a bike back when I still lived in LA and had a job there. And I bought a bike specifically to ride my bike to work. Isn't that weird? It was like a 12 in LA, and it was a 12-mile one-way ride.
You're crazy.
Yeah, I know. And trust me, I get it because two things, real quick, because these are fun, right? Because first off, you need to get the gel seat. So you need the gel seat, and you need the padded tights. Yes. Otherwise, oh my God.
Yep.
So anyway, sore balls aside, I did it. And I'll say this, that ride, I was not doing that for exercise. It was just really freaking fun.
Oh, that's good.
It was
but you got
going
exercise
to work.
too.
Yes. I'm saying, like, obviously it's exercise, that too, but that's not why I was doing it. I was doing it because it sounded like fun, right?
Yeah.
There was this hill that I went down every day on the way, right? And I was like 8 years old going, wee! And it was a freaking blast. Anyway, so I digress. So go ahead. You learned how to ride a bike.
Well, no, the interesting thing but I want to go back to that because the interesting thing about that is when you try something, you should never not shut down things like I did. Why would I ride a bike? Because I can drive a car. Instead, when you try something, you might find that you like it.
Yes.
And you didn't do it before exercise.
Right.
And you liked it, but you were getting great exercise. I know that because, I've ridden thousands and thousands of miles training.
Yes.
I
can tell another funny story too.
I don't have padded seats anymore.
Oh, good for you.
Or padded pants.
Oh, good for you.
It took about a decade, but
yes. Oh, I get it. I get it.
So I think that's good. But anyway, I started riding a bike, and you know what? I liked it too.
It's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It was great exercise. And then, about 2-3 weeks later, maybe it was a month, she says, do you run? And I said, Coach, remember I told you I had that bad back? And what I didn't, I've got scoliosis in 2 spots in my spine.
Okay. Yep.
I said, I've got a hip problem. Right. And I said, what I didn't tell you was I've got one leg that's half an inch shorter than the other.
Yikes.
So I didn't, I said, why would I run? And she said, I think that's even more the reason why you should run.
Right.
So I started running.
Okay.
So here I am. I'm swimming because I got to swim.
Right.
I'm biking because she told me I needed to do it.
Wow.
And I'm running because she said that would be a great idea. And before I know it, I'm accidentally training for a triathlon.
That's awesome. So she didn't even tell. She didn't even mention try at all. She was just like, you're training now. You should ride a bike. Just like that. You're training now. You should run.
I got tricked into it.
Yes. Yeah. I loved it. I love it. I'm going to tell 2 more funny things. So as I got into riding my bike for fun, right? So I was in, greater LA, and I accidentally rode my bike 25 miles one way one day.
Oh no. You got to go because you got to go back.
Exactly.
Holy moly.
It was just, I was having fun, right? So I start out at my house, I'm going on my ordinary route, and I went, hey, I've never gone that way. Let's keep going a little bit. And before I know it, I'm at Santa Monica Pier, right? And that's
I know where that is.
yeah. And I'm like, holy shit, that's like 25 miles from my house.
Yeah.
And then I'm like impressed and scared at the same time, because I've never gone that far, and I realize now that I have to ride my bike most of the way home. I will admit I didn't do all of the 50 miles because I got back to Redondo Beach and got on the bus.
Okay.
And then I had too many beers and I had to go to school at night, smelling like beer, and it was hilarious. Anyway, don't do that. Okay. And the other
know your limits.
Yes.
You know what? That's a good know your limits story.
Know your limits, and don't accidentally go 25 miles one way in a bike just because you're having fun. That's not a good idea. I was really sore. Okay. And then the other thing was when I started riding my bike to work in the morning, I didn't have my route down, and I didn't know how to ride my bike in traffic. Right. So when drivers see you not knowing what you do, they're afraid of you. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad they saw you.
I'm glad they saw me. Yes. I had all my reflective gear on, but I mean, for the first 2 months, people were like just screaming at me, get the F out of the way, you asshole. Right. So I had to Google how to ride in traffic. Right. It's different. You have to be very confident and maintain your line. And then I was good. And then obviously Google Maps came up with the bike route.
Yeah.
And then I was driving through mostly neighborhoods until I couldn't anymore, So there was only like 2 sections that I was actually in real traffic. So
I'm going back to what I said before. You're crazy.
I am crazy.
I mean, it is scary riding out on those streets. You really have to have a lot of trust that the cars do see you.
Yes. I'm glad I did it. I don't do it here in Vegas. But anyway, I digress, as I usually do. Okay, so let's get into this. Now, you're accidentally training for your first triathlon. Which saying that is funny. And remember how I told you that sales is really just all about influence? Right.
Well, I got influenced into doing a triathlon by my coach.
You did. Yes,
yeah,
you did.
She said, there's this thing that the other guys are doing. Why don't you do it with them? And a couple other guys that I trained with, I had a good time with, my buddies Ron and Aaron. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And it was an Olympic distance triathlon. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done. And I got through with that thing. I was beat up. It was really hot that day in the middle of Nowheresville, California, at a place called Lake San Antonio.
Wow. Okay.
And it was dusty but I finished it. And when I got done, I thought, man, that was pretty cool. I didn't think I could do that because remember, in my head, I still see myself as that clumsy kid.
Yes, totally. But you've just experienced what I like to call a identity shift, because now you're a guy that just completed a triathlon, right?
Yeah. No, it's something, and I was a fat guy too, so something that nobody would ever have thought that
so
I could have done.
You still considered yourself a fat guy, even at that point?
Yeah, because I was still fat. I was still a fat guy.
You literally
I didn't really
were.
lose.
Okay.
I didn't really, I was on the path to getting in shape.
Right.
I didn't lose the weight until I made this fateful decision that Olympic distance wasn't long enough, and then I had to find the toughest triathlon in the world.
Ironman.
The Ironman. And I'll tell you what, for those of your listeners who don't know what the Ironman is, it's a 2.4 mile swim.
Right.
And then when you're done with that, you put on your bike helmet, your bike shoes.
Right.
You swim 100 and you ride 112 miles.
Okay. Ouch.
Yes. Yeah. Especially on the backside. And then when you're done with that,
yes,
you put on your running shoes and you run a marathon.
That's 3 times crazy.
It's yes.
You're crazy.
3 times crazy. So, I found the great thing about 3 sports is I could be bad at all three sports and, do something amazing.
Let me ask you a question, because of now we've both decided that we both have done crazy things, but you're a little bit more crazy than me. So congratulations. Good job.
I don't know if that's good.
Yeah, it is. It's, if it has a positive effect, why not? That's my, do the crazy thing. Is it safe? No. Is it smart? No. But it might make you do something positive. You're going to be healthier because of this. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be more confident. All these things. You're going to have a completely different identity and a new self-concept by doing this crazy thing. So good on you. Congratulations. Now, I have a crazy question. So as you're doing this, I was thinking, like, I accidentally rode 50 miles on my bike, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm pretty sure you don't have to be in like super, super shape to ride a bike for a long time, right? You can kind of, because you're on a rolly thing, right? of the three things, right? The bike thing seems like a break a little bit. Can you talk to that a little bit? After you swim and you get on the bike, does the bike seem like you're having a little bit of a break? At least? No. No. Okay, thank you.
Remember, I just said I was bad at all three things.
No.
And
Thank you.
If the bike was, if the course was flat,
yes, then the bike would be a break.
Fun, but 112 miles is a pretty long time. So just to put things in perspective,
I
could.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. No. I just finished. Well, I will tell you. I turned 60 a few days ago.
Congratulations.
And 2 months ago.
Yes.
I finished I competed in the Ironman World Championships in St. George, Utah, and that bike ride was 112 miles with 7,300 feet of climbing.
Oh my God! Not a break at all.
We're talking about, spending 8 hours nonstop. You get out of the water, which for me was about typically about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes. And then you get on the bike for 8 hours and ride.
Wow.
It's.
Do you have to have like a support team giving you bananas and like I don't know, adrenaline shots or something?
I love those adrenaline shots if they would allow it, but you've got to be self-supporting. I mean, there are aid stations where they've got water and things like that, but you carry all your own food.
Okay.
And you're responsible for your own nutrition. So
wow.
I wish, but I still love the bike. I mean, it's still fun.
Yes.
But
not a break. Not a break.
It's not a break. Especially in the Ironman, it's not a break.
No. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
There's nothing easy about this Ironman. They don't call it like Plush Man, right? They don't call it like.
No, they don't call it Plush Man. But I'll tell you what, if I were to rank the three, I mean, swimming for me is great. The bike comes right up there because I am, I've done you do the marathon afterwards, and I am not a runner. So I told you my body's twisted.
Yes.
And in order for me to get through, I just look at the marathon as survival. In order for me to get through that, I had to develop a running style, which I can teach anybody.
Okay.
And anybody could do a marathon with my running style. It's called the shuffle limp. Shuffle. and I've seen videos of myself competing, and it's really, really pathetic looking.
But hey, you know what?
But
you got to do you.
Yeah, you got to do you.
Okay, so that's all awesome. So and you learned so many things, and I bet they all translate to life. So before I tell my stories, at what point did you get your weight under control, and at what point did you get your blood pressure like in the healthy range? So talk a little bit about the timing of that.
It was that first year. I trained for a year.
Right.
I did my first Ironman at 51. So I trained for a year. You'd be amazed what losing weight will do for your blood pressure.
Yeah.
So I lost 48 pounds.
Wow.
In that first year.
In a year. Okay.
In a year. But when you're training, some of the training for the Ironman will take you up to about 24 hours, 25 hours of training a week.
Okay.
when you're putting in that kind of time, it's pretty easy to lose the weight.
You can pretty
It
much
drops
eat
off
whatever
pretty
you
quick.
want.
Yes, but that's
not good though. Yeah.
That's not good, and
Right.
and you have to eat power foods because otherwise you wouldn't be able to sustain yourself for
Right.
that first Ironman I did took almost 17 hours.
Oh my God.
So if you're not eating the right kind of foods to fuel yourself,
Right.
you're not going to succeed. Just real quick, because you said something about what you eat, and I wish I could say I was still a great eater,
Right.
but I had waffles this morning with
Okay.
a lot of syrup and butter on it, and
You deserve it. You deserve
it was
those
it
waffles.
was a real treat.
You deserve those waffles, dude. You deserve, oh my God, you probably still recovering, right? From that.
Yes,
Yes.
it's a long recovery.
Yeah. So,
It's 3 hours for every. The rule of thumb is 3 days of recovery for every hour you race.
wow. Okay. 17 times 3. Okay. I'm not good at math, but that's many days.
3 days. Yeah, you're well into the over a month. For
Yes.
every.
Right. You're over a month. Right.
So that was. I mean, I've done Ironmans in as 13 and a half hours, and I've done Ironmans that took me darn close to the maximum, which is 17 hours.
So I was never an athlete either, but I did this really dumb thing when I was very young in the Air Force. So there was this 24-hour relay, right? It's a 24-hour relay where you've got a team. I want to say there was like 10 people per team, and everybody's got to run a mile every hour. If you've got 10 people on your team, I think it worked out to you have to run every hour, and for 24 hours. So that was what we were doing, right?
You were up all night.
Up all night,
I mean,
right?
you didn't get sleep for.
Well, we had
more
tents. So we had tents. So you could go in and nap while the other team members were running. You could sleep if you wanted to. So I did try to sleep a couple of times. You don't really sleep though. You just kind of lay there and like your heart is pounding and going, "Don't come get me! Don't come get me!" Okay, so not everybody made it to the end. So there were quitters.
Really?
Quitting was allowed, right? So
really?
That meant that like our sleep time diminished. It dwindled, right?
Yeah, because you had to run more, didn't you?
Yes. That meant that our hour was no longer an hour. But while it was still an hour, somewhere around, I don't know, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, I finished my lap and I ran all the way to my dorm room and took a hot shower and then ran back. And I got back with time to spare before my lap. But oh my God, that was the best shower ever.
Well, so can I ask a question?
Please.
Why didn't you quit?
Because I said I was going to do it.
Very good.
I had that piece of identity, right?
That's great. I mean, I think that's great. I have a saying that, I've got some philosophy about winning in life.
Yeah.
And you don't win anything in life unless you finish what you start.
Of course. Yes. Yeah.
Finishers are winners.
It's true. I think that just is, there are probably scenarios where you can't, right? You can't.
Sure.
Like if you get injured or, right? But if you can, right, you should. Yeah. You should. If you say you're going to do something and you're just, it hurts. Of course it hurts.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
I'm tired.
Pain is temporary.
Exactly.
Most of the time, pain is temporary.
Yes. Anyway, so I thought that was funny. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was this was one of these things where it was usually in my job in the Air Force, I didn't do anything that involved physical labor much. I was kind of like a computer guy, admin guy, right? So, office work, sitting at a desk, typing, things like that. And then this one time, these contractors were hired to move these gigantic metal plates through these covered walkways, right? They were pulling wires, right? So the contract did not include removing the bolts from these
Ooh.
metal plates.
Wow.
So me and I don't know how many other people were on bolt removal duty. And we were on, have you ever seen those like little rolly, like, I guess they're furniture movers. It's just like
A dolly, like a dolly.
It's like a dolly. It's like a 2x4s covered in carpet with 4 wheels. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah, the furniture movers. So we were sitting on those things, and then we would just sort of like wheel to the next thing with a drill, right? Over and over and over again. And, oh, by the way, I had shingles.
Oh, no. Wow.
Okay, so I experienced what I like to call life-changing pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home, and I took a shower, and I got in bed, and I was like, how much Tylenol do we have? Right. And I think I took a little bit too much, right? And I started getting dizzy. So I called the emergency room, and it was late at night. So never do that. Never call a military medical facility late at night and say, I might need to come in, because they'll make you come in just to teach you a lesson.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
my complaint was I think maybe I might have taken too much Tylenol. What did they do? They gave me more Tylenol. Anyway, I thought that was a funny story, and I was fine. But moral of the story is shingles really hurt. So try not to do anything physical if you have shingles.
Make sure you get the vaccination.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
You still got it?
Do I still have shingles now?
And you got the vaccination and then you got shingles?
No. I got shingles way back when.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the shingle shot even though I had it, because I don't want to get it again.
Because I've been there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So kids today don't have to deal with that because they've got the chickenpox vaccination. So that's good.
I had the chickenpox too, but I didn't. Did I get the chickenpox vaccination? Did we get that when we were kids?
You're a little younger than me. I don't think they had it back then. You had the shingles because you had chickenpox.
I had chickenpox. Right.
Yeah.
Really bad. Really, really bad. Okay.
It's horrible.
It was horrible. Okay. So let's talk. Yeah, I know.
We're talking about chickenpox.
Right. Yes. This is the show. I love it. That's called a veer of a conversation. So as we wrap up, because we're getting close to about an hour here, talk a little bit about your business and how people can best get in touch with you. I know you said something about a video course. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So my main website, which you talked about earlier, is Ironman Success.
Right.
And you can find a little bit about what I do. I work with salespeople.
Right.
I love salespeople because that's the job that I had for so many years, and business professionals, business owners.
Okay.
I'm also a keynote speaker. So I tell lots of stories about the Ironman and the lessons I learned in Ironman and how those translate over into your business or in your life.
Okay.
One of the things that I developed through one of the races that I did was a particularly tough race.
Okay.
Is a success formula. It's a 4-step success formula.
I love it.
How to push through when things don't go your way.
Right.
And how to redirect yourself and finish. And as I said earlier, I believe that finishers are winners. Here's a really sad but true statistic. 92% of the people that set a goal to do something do not complete it. And that was a University of Scranton study. LinkedIn did a study and found it to be 89%. And so people, when they run into the brick wall or the hurdle, a lot of times people don't know what to do, so they just quit.
Right.
And so I've devised a 4-step process to win in life, and a 5-step process, which I love, that you can use if you're in sales. And the program is actually called How to Win in Sales 100% of the Time, even when the prospect says no.
Okay.
And so I got
like
all
it.
of these
That's
things
good.
that I learned from it's super successful. People love it. And I want to give it as a gift to your listeners. You know, the if they're in business, the 5-step process works great. And if you're alive, and we all are alive, and we all have issues that don't go our way, the 4-step process is great too. And you can get access to that at the 100, the number 100% winner.com.
All right.
100%winner.com. So that's a freebie that I
Right.
want to be able to give your listeners.
That's perfect. And we'll link all that in the show notes. So I have to remind you, and you're going to be scared and sad and mad at me, but we said that you were going to tell a story that we didn't know. So we haven't done that yet. And we said we would do it.
Well, I told the story about being a fat guy in the doctor's office, but
That's true. Give us one more story.
All right, one more story. Okay.
One more story, and then I'll let you go, and you can think about it. Okay.
Yeah. No. Here's what I'll do. I'll tell a little part of a story that goes into the success formula that I just talked about.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the how I developed it was the very first Ironman I did was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I thought, this is in July. I thought this is going to be great. The weather's going to be beautiful. It's really scenic. And that particular day, it was 108 degrees. Oof. They had a 50-year high. This is the first Ironman I've ever done.
Wow.
108 degrees.
Lovely.
And it was
about the cosmic irony for you.
I know. It was miserable. So I made it through the swim. I got through that. It was great being in the water. And I got out of the water, and you wear your clothes, your bike clothes. I wore my bike clothes, got on my bike. I'm soaking wet. It was so hot, I was dry in a matter of minutes.
Right.
I made it up to mile 81 of the bike ride, and I came to an aid station, and I was out of water. I didn't have anything to drink. I was starting to suffer from dehydration. As I get to that aid station, I look around, and Jeffrey, there were bodies strewn all over the pavement. There were athletes that were just lying there that had quit, that couldn't go on.
Wow.
And because they were in the same sort of spot that I was in.
Right.
Which is they ran out of water. And dehydration is a very serious thing. It's a very serious thing. I didn't know it at the time, but it's a very serious thing. So I just knew I needed to get something to drink, and they had nothing. No Gatorade, no water, nothing at all.
Wow. What kind of aid station is this? This is the aid station.
There was no aid. And I think they underestimated the effects of the heat.
Right. Yes, they did.
It was a 50-year high. They just didn't have enough stuff.
Right.
And I'm not a quitter. I think, we talked a little bit about finishing what you start. I knew, by the way, that's step 4 in the process. Okay. I won't go through all four steps, but that's step 4. At this particular point, I was challenged because I couldn't go on in the race, and I had to find a way to get back in the race to finish it. And so this is where you got to think a little bit outside the box and do something a little bit different.
It would have been real easy to quit at that point, by the way.
There were
everybody else is quitting. Race. Yeah, everybody else is quitting. Right.
They had
there was nothing I could do.
Trucks full of bikes.
Right.
They were taking bikes back.
Wow.
The athletes had quit. So I knew there was no water. I kept asking everybody, is there anything at all I can drink? I looked around, and I saw off in the corner, I saw this kiddie pool, a little blue kiddie pool.
Okay.
Your mom might have put you in.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And I realized, I went over it and I looked in it. I realized that's where the water was earlier in the day. And what was in it now was just this dingy brown water, like somebody had washed their feet off.
Ew. Yes. Yeah.
And if you think about it, they probably did, because how do you cool off? So it was just gross. And there were bugs and leaves, and there were labels from the water bottles in it.
Yeah. And you drank it.
And yeah, you jumped right to it. I mean, I looked down in there and I thought, how am I going to get back in the race?
Right.
And I had people were watching me.
Wow.
And I got down on my knee and I pushed aside the grass and the leaves and the bugs. And I just started scooping that water up and just slurping it down.
Yeah.
And I
Like
had
a
people
man
look
in
at
the
me like,
desert.
"You're crazy. This guy is crazy."
Yes, you are. I love it. You're the good kind of crazy.
But I got back in the race.
You
About
did.
10 minutes later, I felt well enough and I drank all this water. Unfortunately, I didn't get sick, but I got back in the race and I finished the race. And that was my first Ironman. And I had this attitude that I wasn't going to quit. I was going to do everything I could.
Find a
Remember,
way.
I trained for a year for this.
Right. Yeah. And more than that, it would have been like super easy to quit. I mean, you had every excuse in the world. 108 degrees, 50-year high. Everybody else quit, and you still didn't quit. So that's some strong. I would call that intrinsic motivation. You just could not.
There was intrinsic.
Yeah.
There was extrinsic motivation also, because I'll tell you what. I told everybody on Facebook I was doing this, so
Right.
I couldn't fail.
You couldn't.
Right?
You couldn't live with
No,
the
my
new
thousands of
identity.
Facebook friends.
Right. Yes. Well, you couldn't live with that. Right. You couldn't be the guy that quit. Couldn't
Right.
do that because you were the guy that finished. Yes.
So that's my story about
I love
doing whatever it takes to stay in the game, whatever your goal is.
Right.
It's so easy to give up, but it was a painful day, but pain is temporary.
Amen. Yes. Rich, this has been a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We had
I
a lot of
love
fun.
meeting other crazy people just like me.
We're crazy in good ways. Everybody's a little crazy, right? I told my wife that the other day. I was like, I know you're crazy, but you're the kind of crazy I love. Rich, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for about an hour. You have a good
Totally
one.
enjoyed it.
All right.
Yeah, totally enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.